All right, today what we're going to be doing is talking about how to convert your standard major or minor chords into a more bluesy sounding style chord. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at open chords and we're going to look at bar chords as well, depending on where you are in your guitar journey, and we'll figure out how to make this sound a little more bluesy. Now, our example today is going to consist of an A chord, a D chord, and an E chord. Now, we're going to look at those three chords in the open position, and we're also going to look at A and D and E in the bar chord position, depending on what it is that you're learning, and you can use either one of these or both of these, okay? So, in order to convert a standard major or minor chord, and right now we're going to be looking at major chords, into a more of a bluesy sound, what we're going to do is we're going to add what's called the seventh. Now, in theory, it's called A dominant 7 or D dominant 7 or E dominant 7, but what we generally refer to these as is just A7 or D7 or E7, and you might have seen these before. Now, when you play these three seventh chords together, you tend to make your music sound more bluesy. So we're taking a regular major chord. We're not going to get into theory and all that right now, but we're taking a regular major chord and we're adding in the sound of this seventh. So let's first just look at what it is that I'm talking about. So if we took this A chord right here, this A major chord, okay, what I'm going to do is take the middle note where my middle finger is right now, and I'm going to take that finger off, and I'm not being rude here, I'm just taking the finger off the guitar, okay? And now when I play, you're going to hear 0, 2, 0, 2, 0. And it's this note right here that makes that bluesy sound. Now you might play your A with these three fingers, which is fine. Then you would take the ring finger off, and again, you're going to get that bluesy sound. So what's really happening is we're taking this note right here, that's G, or excuse me, that's A, it's on the G string. And we're moving it back 2 frets to become the sound of G. So A is becoming G. So we're adding the note G into this chord, and it's making it sound like more bluesy. So this chord right here would be called A7. Or technically A dominant 7th, but we can just say A7. Okay, so I'm playing 0, 2, 0, 2, 0. Now let's take a look at the D chord. Okay, now what we can do to make this sound like a blues chord is take this note right here, which is D, and move it back 2 frets and add in the note C. Now, in order to do that, I can't stay in this fingering because I won't be able to reach that. So what I have to do is I have to rearrange my fingers here and make the D like this. Now, these 2 fingers are still the same notes that they were before. I'm just using different fingers for this. But now I'm able to take my first finger and play this C back here and get the sound of that D7. E is up here. And in order to get that 7th sound, I'm going to take this note here, my 3rd finger, which is the note E right now. And if I take that finger off, it's going to become the sound of this string, which is D. Okay? So you'll notice that there's a consistency in each one of these 3 chords as I'm taking a finger and either taking it off or moving it down. I'm moving it down 2 frets, which is what we call a whole step. Okay? I'm moving it down a whole step, and we're getting that 7th sound. So A becomes A7, D becomes D7, and E becomes E7. Now, if you haven't watched, there's another video that talks about playing 12-bar blues. I would highly suggest you watching that if you haven't already, because that's going to help you with understanding how the actual 12-bar blues progression works and all that sort of thing, to use these 3 chords together to make blues, okay? But in this video, we're just going to be talking about that 7th sound. So I take the A7, D7, E7, and my 3 chords now have that bluesy kind of sound. Now let's look at doing the exact same thing, but doing it to some bar chords. So we're going to take this A major bar chord, and this D major bar chord, and this E major bar chord. Okay, and we're going to convert all three of those into seventh chords, or dominant seventh chords. So I'm taking this A, and what I'm going to do is take my pinky off the guitar. And I've got myself this nice A7 or A dominant 7 sound. Now, the cool thing is if you know how to play your 6-string bar chords, if you've got a major chord, no matter where you go on the 6th string, if you take that pinky off, you're going to get a 7th sound, a dominant 7th sound, on any chord you play. Now, we're in the key of A right now, so I'm just going to stay here, but that's how it works. Now, if I move down to my 5th string bar chord, which is D, I want to make this into a D7 chord, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 3rd finger, instead of barring over all 3 of these strings, I'm just going to put it on the 4th string, and I'm going to put my pinky now on the 2nd string, both at the 7th fret. And what I've done is I've relieved the 3rd string, because I was pressing on the 3rd string before with this finger. Well, now I'm not. I'm not pressing on the 3rd string at all. So the 3rd string actually has been moved back 2 frets to where my bar is. So I have 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, which is going to be awfully similar to this A7 in terms of construction. So there's my D7. And if I wanted E7, all I'd have to do is move up 2 frets higher if you know the notes on your 5th string and you've been working on your bar chords, which there are videos for all of these things. There's my E7. So I have A7, D7, and E7. Okay, so that's a great way of being able to convert your major chords into 7th or dominant 7th sounding chords. Now, if we wanted to do minor, it's actually going to be the same idea, but each chord needs to start off as being minor, but the note that we're adding in is going to be the same note. So let's take a look at that really quick. So A7, we started with an A major chord, and A7 was created by taking this note right here, which is A, and making it into G. Well, we would do the same thing over an A minor chord instead. So there's A minor. This note right here, which is A, is going to need to be created or converted to a G. And there you go. There's A minor 7. It's a beautiful sound. D became D7, which is great, but we need to start off with a D minor chord. So you have to know D minor, of course, which is like this. 1, 3, and 2 frets. So what we did to make that into a 7th is we took this note right here and we moved it back 2 frets. So what we can do for that is we can just bar over these 2. And then we've got ourselves a D minor 7. And E looked like this. E7 looked like this. So again, we need to make that chord minor. So we're going to take that off and take that off. We've got ourselves an E minor 7. So what you're doing is taking the chord, the major chord, A or D or E, you're making it into minor, and then you're adding that same 7th over what you already had. So if we were on a bar chord, here's A major. We made it into A7 by doing this, which is great. Okay, but we need to start off by making this chord minor first, then add that 7th. It's a really nice sound. So I'm playing 5, 7, 5, 5, 5, 5. Now D was like this. Well, and then we converted the note on the 3rd string here. Well, we need to make that chord minor to begin with. So here's D minor. And we take that finger off. We got ourselves D minor 7. And of course, E minor 7 is just a whole step higher. So with that knowledge, you can actually take your chords and convert them into minor and play them minor 7th, which is a really beautiful sound. Or you can play them as major chords. It doesn't make any difference. But anyway, that's how this whole thing works. Hopefully that helps you a little bit to better understand this and use these chords in your playing.